Thank you.
Thank you for.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. This is uh, my name's Brian Hill. This is God and Country, and I'm collecting National Guard stories of our soldiers who served before, during, and after the war, and have a unique privilege of getting to introduce probably one of the first soldiers that I ever met in the National Guard before I had left for basic training and came back to be in the same unit. Uh, Specialist James Lister is a member of the Squaxin tribe and the Makah tribe,
Yes.
and that's about as northwest as you can get. Your people have been here on the this part of the state for thousands of years. Still have a very big tribal presence. I've been up to Nia Bay. I've been to some of the different lodge houses around the state. You have a very unique perspective in the Guard that a lot of the soldiers don't. Now, just curious, were you in the, I know when we had the situation with the whale hunt that was reinstituted by your tribe, the National Guard was called up and involved with that. Were you also involved with the WTO riots in Seattle when that happened?
No. When the National Guard was activated for protester control at Nia Bay, I was not activated because it would have been a conflict of interest to have me policing my own people. They said that's probably not a good idea.
I knew you were serving during the incident, so I wasn't sure
Yes.
if you were like actually involved in that.
Yes,
that whole piece of-
I was, however, activated by the chief of police to help the local police when protesters showed up at the reservation. And I stood behind the police line to prevent people from coming onto the reservation when we were closed during that time. So local authorities can activate or ask National Guard help. And being the only National Guardsman there, I was activated. So it was interesting times.
It's a long way to drive for drill, especially if you were at the Centralia Armory. So
4 hours.
wow, wow. For those that don't know, the Makah tribe, after many years of not being able to do their tribal hunt to get whale, had finally been reinstated to where they could do a traditional hunt. And in that process, there was a lot of local folks that were, well, actually from around the state protesting their right to hunt. This was been kind of a sore subject with environmentalists and with tribal rights for a lot of years, but it actually went off mostly without a hitch.
Mm-hmm.
Now, my understanding is the whale, the bones that I see at the Makah Museum, is that from that whale?
There's actually 2 skeletons in the museum, and one of them is. As you go in, it's in the ceiling over the 2 canoes that are used for educational purposes.
It's massive. I mean, it's very. If you get the chance to go to Nia Bay to see this, it is it's an impressive sight when you actually walk underneath the remains, this skeleton of a whale. You realize just how big they actually are.
In relation, the size of the whale with the size of the canoes underneath, and
Yeah.
the canoes aren't as big as the whale.
It's scary. The water's cold. I mean, I don't like swimming in our beaches, just even in 80-degree weather during the summer. I could not imagine for thousands of years doing that in these wooden canoes with just spears.
And then to keep them from sinking, they would jump in the water and sew the mouth shut and the blowhole so it wouldn't sink.
Wow. Wow.
And how they protected themselves from the cold of the water they actually had the fat rendered down from prior hunts, and kind of like a, how you would say, a Crisco, and they would cover themselves with that to insulate themselves from the coldness of the ocean, so that they could be in the water longer.
Kind of like their own seal oil or protective coat.
Yeah. Using the blubber to insulate themselves like a whale.
No, what I gotta ask, what is that like growing up? Because it's different than, say, somebody from another country that moves to America and is trying to make their way through American culture.
Mm-hmm.
Your people were here before us.
Mm-hmm.
You were living that tribal life, but also living, everyday society.
The balance.
The balance. How did that go?
Both my parents are college educated, and my mother was raised traditionally in Nia Bay, where she was born. So with that comes that culture. That's in the home. We still weren't widely allowed to practice these, because during the 70s, or 60s and 70s was the Indian Wars. With not Standing Rock. What is that? It was
down at
where Leonard Pell,
Alcatraz.
Alcatraz was happening. Then Leonard Peltier out in Montana or somewhere. Anyways, it wasn't widely popular. There was AIM had started up, so practicing outside was like asking for it. So there was still secrecy in our practices. But as far as going to school, being one Indian in my school, a lot of questions as a kid. Why don't you paint your face? Why aren't you wearing feathers? Where's your long hair? Do you wear moccasins? And yeah, there was a lot of that, but I didn't care. And I wasn't raised to judge other people. And if I did, it was quickly handled by my parents. Don't do that. That's not nice. Don't do that. You don't want them to do that to you. Don't do that. Okay, not a problem. And so with the balance between my native life and my outside of native life was a check and balance. I had to understand who I was, and then understand the life I'm leading and going into, and use both. So how they call it is being a warrior. Being a warrior isn't just fighting and protecting the tribe. It's protecting your children, your elderly, your community, making sure people are fed, they're housed, they're clothed. Just as in regular society, you have to work and be honest. How do you say, steadfast in your goal of achieving these things. So with that, if done correctly, you can combine the two and put it all together in one and find a balance. Now, is there people that are gonna come after you for these things? Yeah, but that's okay, they're allowed. I just smile. Okay. But it was definitely interesting through the 70s, growing up Native and being a lot browner than everybody else.
Well, now you joined the Army Guard. How did that come about? I mean, did you have family members that were in the service, or?
My father was in the Army in Korea, and he was honorably discharged. His brother was in Korea. I have almost all of my uncles were prior service military, and I was married at the time. Here comes the warrior part. Married at the time with 3 daughters. I had no job, and I had talked to a recruiter, and he had mentioned that there's this bonus and these things can happen for you and your family. Okay, so I went to the office and talked with him more, and I took the ASVAB test, and I didn't pass. Took it twice and didn't pass. It was only math that I couldn't get, so I had to wait. I don't know if you remember the waiting period for reapplying to do the ASVAB.
I want to say it was 6 months.
Yeah, and we couldn't wait 6 months. So my wife at the time used to live in Alaska, and she wanted to go back. So we loaded everything up and we moved to Alaska. And I went to their recruiter and I passed the math. So I changed the whole state just to get into the military so I could take care of my family. And I wound up being in the aviation section of the 177th Aviation in Fort Richardson, Alaska.
I did not know that.
Yes.
Because when we met, we were in field artillery, so
Out of the Centralia Battery.
Yep. Yep.
But yes, I was up there. I went to Fort Sill, Oklahoma. Everything in Oklahoma is brown, including the people and the buildings and the trees and the grass. Graduated Fort Sill, and then went to Fort Lee, Virginia for POL training. Then came back to Alaska for a year and did my monthly drills in Alaska for a year, and then I transferred down here and was here for 2 years before I met you, before you came in. And it's weird, I got down here and they said, well, we're going to put you in 2 of the 146. I'm like, okay, what's 2 of the 146? It's a field artillery unit. Well, there's no wings on tanks. There's no rotors either. I'm an aviation refueler. Well, that's the only opening they had. Aviation's full. It's the Army. Why is the Army full? And, well, that's the opening we have. Okay, so do I get to go to the aviation? We'll see. We'll see. So wound up there, and that's when 2 years after that, Brian showed up.
My first experience was I had just met with recruiter, went up to see the unit, and mind you, my first couple encounters are before I may have been officially swore in, but hadn't left for basic training yet. I'm 30 at the time. I have a full goatee. It was a dark brown back then, and it wasn't this nice white appearance that I have now. But my hair was a lot longer, had more of it, and I walk into the maintenance shop and meet this gentleman, and had my first encounter with some of the vehicles that I would be working with. Now, having said that, I was in a real wake-up call from my brief introduction and meeting with you all, leaving for basic training, having that active duty mindset, and coming back to the Guard and hearing everybody call each other by their first name in the shop. I had no idea distinction between technicians and AGRs and active duty. That this was all I saw were people in uniform calling each other by their first names. So it was a real culture shock for me to come in. But even then, you were never afraid, never ashamed of your heritage. You didn't beat anybody over the head with it, but you were very clear who you were, what tribe you were from, and it was kind of a nice touch of, wow, you were connected to this state. I mean, the one thing about the Guard that's different than a lot of the active duty components is we are from the states that we enlist in, or we're from the communities that we enlist in, and you probably had the biggest connection to this state of anybody that I what was your? I understand you were saying you were wanting to help out your family, but you come back to Washington. What makes you go back to the Guard? Were you a technician when I met you, or were you on ADOS orders?
No, I was assigned to the service battery as the petroleum specialist, just refuel everything. I was still a PFC when you came in, and why they handed you off to me, I don't know. Probably nobody else wanted it. I don't.
It's yeah, it was hard to get along with. It was no.
It was interesting. The first thing, Lister, yes, this is Brian. He's just joining up. He just got done with his recruiter, and I'm thinking to myself, great. Show him the facility and show him your trucks. Tell him what you do. Not a problem. I'm on it. And shook hands. He introduced himself, and the first impression, yep, this guy's got long hair. And he was wearing a long sleeve vintage KISW rock shirt. I do remember that. Blue jeans and Vans. Skater kid. I'm like, oh, they're going to love him. And so we took the tour.
Did you know I was a logger at that point?
No.
Did you?
No.
I was trying to wear. I was trying to wear my nicest clothes.
Those was the nice ones.
These were the nice clothes I had. Something that weren't tore up or had sawdust or, yeah.
Yeah. So we took the tour of the facility, showed him the trucks, and having been a supervisor and working with other military folks, I was trying to dissuade him from joining the military. Instead of encouraging him and saying, hey, this is great, you're going to love it, the glory of refueling and driving trucks, I'm like, you're going to work hard, you're going to smell like fuel, you're going to be tired, it's going to suck. And he absorbed it all. He was very quiet. He asked a lot of questions, but he didn't talk a lot. He was absorbing all this. And I'm like, okay, this guy just might work out. And I said, yes, he's going to be assigned to this battery. I'm like, well, I guess I better make room for him because we only had 5 guys in there at the time. No, we had 13. I'm sorry. And it went down to 5. And with that, yeah, he left for basic, did his AIT, and came back. Was it 2000?
Yeah, 2000.
Yeah, 2000. I had been promoted to specialist by then. It happened fast. Then we got him acclimated into the section. Got him his job, what he's going to do. Introduced him to Brian. And I said, this is your new battle buddy. You're going to be riding in his truck. And they became fast friends. And earned the moniker Blue Falcon.
Yes.
Earned it.
Which I am
earned it.
very, very proud of. On a military, for those not in the military, Blue Falcon is a term of endearment and honor, and
a great
should be
honor.
Respected throughout history.
In Native culture, it is an honor to be a Blue Falcon.
It's my tribal name as when I was adopted. Now, long hours. The thing that I will say right off the bat, we were involved with the transfer of the transition from the howitzer tank or gun to the Paladin.
Yeah, the M205 self-propelled to the Paladin.
It was a very busy training cycle. We fueled an incredible amount of hours at the Yakima Training Center, and there was this the thing that I noticed. This is all pre 9/11,
Mm-hmm.
so I noticed very much that our hoses were rotting. The grounding cables were broken. The HEMTs themselves, the vehicles that we drove with the fuel, were missing a lot of gear. We're not always working. Might not always get us to where we needed to go. This was a big eye opener for me of like, okay, if we go into combat
With this,
how are we supposed to to make do. But the interesting thing was, we made do. I mean, even with as broke as our equipment was, it was amazing how yourself and we had Master Sergeant Kraft and some others who, it was kind of like a MacGyver situation. They could duct tape anything or a hose clamp anything to help us
It was a matter
succeed and finish mission.
when we went to summer camp of 2000. I had already gained section chief as a specialist, and it's a NCO spot. Only NCOs get that as section chief, but nobody wanted it. Nobody wants to be in charge of the fuel section.
We were definitely
the
stepchildren
of the totem pole. See, we're getting back to this native thing. We're the bottom of the totem pole, and I said, "I'll do it." What do you mean you'll do it? I'll take the section. I know what I'm doing. And so they had me leave, and they talked about it, and then they called me back up and said, "All right, let's get your feet wet. It's your section now. Show us what you got." And that's when, see, you had fully gotten into the battery by this time, and we did our first AIT. And I had talked with supply and the master sergeant, and I was still working up at Camp Murray as sales and marketing.
Oh, wow.
And
I
General
did not
Lee
know that.
Legowick worked there, along with all the colonels, for recruiting and all the big ideas that they have for National Guard and training. And I said, we got a lot of surplus from the regular Army in our vehicles right now, and it's not really safe. Where can I find better hoses and better equipment? And, well, you have your section chief call these guys and see what they got. Done. So I called them up, and they said, "Oh, we just need your supply sergeant to call us and requisition this stuff." Huh, okay. So I called Brown, and I said, "Hey, Brown, this is all you got to do." I talked with Legowick, and he said, "Just call this guy, tell him, Lister sent you." They'll say, "Who the heck is that?" And he'll say, "Oh, he's friends with General Legowick." Oh, and
That was back
We
in the
got-
day. That was back in the days when you could still do kind of those, drop a name and
Yeah.
get the items that you needed.
the inside, and that's how we got the new hoses and the new nozzles. I was just dropping a name here and there, and if I remember correctly, it was a pain in the ass changing those hoses off because guerrillas put the bolts on. But that's how we got that stuff, and it was an adventure for sure. And you weren't lying. Those trucks were worse off than you knew about. We had a sergeant go into the doghouse next to the drivers and rewire it because it wasn't running good enough for him. So
Wow.
I had to figure out what he did and then unfigure it out.
I just remember the pieces of deer that were still stuck to the helmet that one of our
Barns.
fellow soldiers had hit previously.
It was an elk.
Now, were you? And so there's a lot of legends, stories that go through the Guard in trainings, and I had to ask if you were part of. Master Sergeant Kraft had shared the story with me about the two deuce and a halves that went over the pass.
Uh-huh.
One of them broke down, and they left a soldier there to take care of it, and it was the one that had all the beer on
No, I wasn't
And-
part of
Okay, I'm gonna finish this story out because I can't leave you hanging on this. But what he told me was that the vehicle had broke down and they pulled over near Natchez
that.
and went on to go to training for the weekend.
Right.
Now this was the truck that they would take all their beer supply with them on, and nobody came back for the soldier. And so when they come back 2 days later, He's sitting in his lawn chair, has a lean-to going out from the side of the truck, and he's about ankle deep in beer cans surrounding him because they never
bothered to come back.
never came back, never brought him food.
And
never,
there's a pork chop in every can.
Yeah, so when they came back, they hooked it up, towed him back. He couldn't drive, of course, because he was pretty far gone.
Yeah.
But I didn't know if you were there during that time, because that was always one of my favorite stories from 2146 was, at least from the service battery, these were things that actually happened, and there's a lot more, and we'll save those for another story, or another episode.
Another episode of the glories of Washington Army National Guard.
No, we get up to 9/11.
Mm-hmm.
Where were you when 9/11 hit?
When 9/11 happened that morning, I was asleep. I'd only probably been asleep about 5-6 hours because I worked the graveyard shift at Red Wing Casino. And my girlfriend at the time comes in and is yelling at me. What? And I don't know what she's saying. Something about a plane crash and something about the Twin Towers. Just turn on the TV. Turn on the TV. So he turned on the TV, found the news, and I'm looking right at one of the trade centers on fire. I'm like, oh wow, that sucks. I mean, they've been hit before. I mean, did they do it on purpose? I have all these questions, and I don't even have coffee yet. And all of a sudden, wham! The second plane hits. Oh crap! That's not an accident. This is not an accident. I'm awake now, and I'll grab my gear, stuff it in that duffel bag, and I got on the phone and I called the battery. I know the sergeant's there, some sergeant of some sort, and I called him and I said, "Hey, are we under a raging bull? How do you know what that is?" That doesn't matter. Do you know that the Twin Towers are on fire? The what? Yeah, the World Trade Center's on fire. They just flew 2 planes into it. Let me call you back. And he hung up. So I'm sitting there getting ready. I'm putting my uniform on because I'm thinking we're all going to have to go to the battery for some reason. And a few minutes later, he calls up and he says, "Don't ever say that again. And stay home. Don't leave. But be ready." I'm ready. It's like a fireman praying for fire. I'm ready. And the phone call never came, except for a couple days later. It said, "Okay, drill is on this regular time, but be here at 5 o'clock in the morning." Okay, we're going to prep vehicles. Okay, done. I was there at 4:30. But it was more like a readiness than anything. And we sat and we talked about it. You know, we're going to be going through a lot of emotions right now. We need to control all these. You know, if you're a person of faith, look into your faith. If you have friends you need to talk to, or you need to talk to us, please come talk to us. A lot of support in the battery.
I remember that.
And I would talk to the guys about it. Like, this is what I think, and this is what you think, and let's round this together and we'll be fine. You know, I know we want to run off and go start shooting people, but we just can't do these things. And yeah, it was a highly emotional time for me and the guard to keep all of that in here, because I was projecting to you guys. And I had to remember, they're going to feed off of what I'm saying and what I'm doing. Focus on the duty, focus on the job, keep them working to keep their mind off of what's going on, which is why I worked you guys so hard, which is why I put barns in supply. We folded nets, we tended to the trucks, we did the PMCS every day, 3 times a day. So you guys wouldn't be thinking about this stuff. I'm over here freaking out.
I think we were all concerned. Now, the problem is, shortly after that, I'm actually training for, I'm training to do the special forces test, and I'm training also to become a deputy sheriff reserve.
I remember that.
I get struck by a Suburban, I get ran over, and end up spending the next year trying to walk again. But in that time, I'm in a wheelchair, and we get the, is it the raging bull or roaring? There was two different terms that they used for getting us ready for mobilizing.
Raging Bull was time of war. Be ready for war. Roaring Lion, I think, was
The readiness.
the readiness. Yeah.
So we all come in, have to do all of our medical records, make sure that our will is in place, make sure that our pay is where it's supposed to be. We get sent to Fort Lewis to get all of our
Paperwork in order.
paperwork, smallpox shots, all of our immunizations, and of course I'm rolling into this in a wheelchair, and
I'm ready.
being told that I'm most likely going to be discharged at that point. We're on pins and needles, just waiting for our orders to get sent overseas. I'm obviously waiting to see if I'm about to be discharged from the military. And then it goes quiet. We get told to stand down.
Mm-hmm.
And then nothing.
Yeah, it was weird.
Now, it was at this point you come, I believe, to the end of your contract.
Mm-hmm. And I had a conversation with Captain Russell. He was the LT when I got there, but he was the captain when I was ready to leave. I'm at the end of my 6 years. So I had a conversation with him about re-enlisting, because people were falling out of the 20146 like flies. You know, we were a full battery at one point, and then we were down to like, geez, we were 50, 100, we were 150 strong when I came in, and we were down to like 75 people. And so I raised my hand and re-enlisted for another 4 years. You know, I'm going to miss my camaraderie. I'm going to miss my friends. And yeah, I got that. So I re-enlisted, raised my hand, swore in, signed the paperwork. And by this time, I'm a year into being the section chief. I haven't even signed up to go to ANOC or BNOC yet. Or whichever school it was called.
PLDC, I think at the time.
Primary Leadership.
Yep.
And so I'm thinking this is going on. Another month goes by. I come in and, what are you doing here? What are you talking about? Well, you're out. No, I re-enlisted. Captain Chambers. And I said, I re-enlisted with Captain Chambers and Sergeant Foss. Well, that's gone. What do you mean it's gone? Yeah, they don't have it. So
Wait. I just want to get this on. Are you saying that the Army lost paperwork?
My paperwork.
I am like,
not just anybody's paperwork, my paperwork. They lost my re-enlistment paperwork.
I had to put in my retirement memo at least 3 times. I think it was the 3rd time or the 4th time it finally went through, and then I retired. And I kid you not, I got a call a month after my retirement saying that I was going to be AWOL for drill if I didn't show up. And I was kind of laughing about it. And they're like, actually, we're serious. Something didn't check out with your paperwork. It looks like your retirement isn't finalized. You need to be here for drill. And fortunately, had an outstanding readiness NCO. And she was like, no, it's
legit.
Just disregard. You're retired. I was, because I was, in 20-something years, I had never missed a drill.
Yeah.
Even when I got ran over,
over.
I still made it to
I'm
drill.
here.
I was in a wheelchair, and still made it to drill. So
Yeah, profiles. They can't keep us down. So, yeah, he says that your paperwork's out. I'm like, well, I'm out. Lost my cap, walked out, done blast. You can't gig me now. And so I found out that I got to do 2 years inactive with the Army Reserve. Okay, so I went over and I met with the Army Reserve, and I said, "So how often do I come here?" And he's like, "Never." Wait, what? Yeah, unless we call you, you don't need to be here. Okay.
How did you beat stop loss? I mean, holy smoke! Everybody got stopped for man.
And so I did 2 years, and before that, I'm like, okay, sorry, Captain Chambers was right. I'm missing this, because at this point, civilian life is driving me nuts. The organization isn't there. I'm missing my battle buddies, and I want back in. So I went to the recruiter and I said, "Hey, how do I get back in? You know, I'm a specialist. I did my 6 years and I have an honorable." And so he types in the computer, "All right, let me do some checking around. We'll see if we can get you back in." And I get a call to come back in. Come back in. I thought you said you were just going to call me. He's like, "No, I need to talk to you." Okay. So I went into the office. I said, "So why am I here?" He's like, "Well, I hate to tell you this, but we can't get you in." Why? They don't have your file. I'm like, "What file?" Your file, your whole file. I mean, you mean the thing up at Fort Lewis, the box, from when I started to when I got out, all of my achievements and all of my paperwork, medical records and training, all that? So yeah, it's gone. Gone where?
Oh man.
Yeah.
Because I've met a lot of soldiers over the years who had, well, back at that time, that the St. Louis fire, there was the kind of a historic fire for the Army, but where a lot of soldiers and military's career records were held, that facility caught on fire and burnt, and thousands and thousands of career soldiers, their entire military history was gone, was up in flames, and this is in the days before everything was backed up on computers, and so, but your story is also
Not
it wasn't uncommon. I had heard things like that from other soldiers
the whole
also.
thing. Everybody's files were there. All of service battery, even past service battery members, were still there in Fort Lewis, but my whole file was gone. And I said, "So what about enlistment? Is that still on the record?" "Yes, we still have your enlistment date. You still have my exit date." "Yes, but everything in the middle's gone. Doesn't it seem fishy to you?" "Well, kind of, yeah. Yeah, kind of, yeah." So without that, I couldn't get in. And so I waited till the end of my 2 years. No, they said I had to wait that out because they still had that for some reason. And so the 2 years is up, and I went back. I'm still trying to get in. And they said, "You'll have to do basic again." Like, all of basic? I'm a specialist. You don't see specialists doing basic training. You know how I got specialist? By being trained. And they said, "No, you'll just probably march with them and go with them and do stuff, but you'll have to go through the 2 months at Fort Sill again."
Oh, they didn't have because I know there for a while they had the kind of like the 2-week refresher course.
No, I would have had to have done it all
Oh,
again.
wow.
And I'm
Wow.
like, yeah, I'm like, look, no. But thank you anyway. And so I tried the Air Guard. I'm like, okay, I'll just try the Air Guard. I'm still trying. This is 4 years later. I tried the Air Guard, and I didn't make it into that one. And their recruiter tried yelling at me. I'm like, "Hey, I don't know who you're talking to or how long you've been in. You're not going to talk to me that way. Who's in charge of you?" And that's another story another day. A long one, fun one. And so I'm at my 4th time trying to get back in, and that's when I found out Brian was a recruiter. And I said, "Hey, Brian, you're my in. This is the last time. This is 6 years, maybe 7 years now that I've been out, and I'm trying to get back in." "Oh, okay, yeah. He's kind of native that way." And so let me talk to my commander. and he talked to was it captain?
I believe so.
Yeah, he talked to the captain, and he said, "Bring him in." Like, oh, okay. So I go in. He goes, "I want to shake your hand." Okay. And Brian will shut up about you. He's told me stories. I'm like, none of it's true.
Yeah, we Blue Falcon.
So they pulled some strings, and after this many years of working hard to get back in, they said all I got to do is sign these papers. They backdoored it around the bureaucracy to get me back in. No basic training, no AIT. I would drop in rank, and they didn't know where they would send me. All I had to do was sign the paperwork, and I said, okay, I'm just got to talk to my fiance. I don't want to hit her with this out the door. So we went home, and I went home and talked to my fiance, and we talked for 2 hours about the pros of National Guard, the cons of being deployed, the benefits, the retirement, possibly going to war and not coming back. We talked about all of that stuff. And reluctantly, I chose my life and my wife. And came back in and told Brian, I am so sorry I had you guys go through all this, but with this long conversation, I'm not going to be signing the paperwork today.
And I cussed him for months after that. I was not, no. But my hope is at least the one thing you can say is that I was honest about it, because it was within, I bet you, 6 months that I was activated again to deploy again. And I wanted to be very clear with you that deployment was a possibility, and of course
I was all about it. I told him I want my flag. Your flag? Yeah, I want my battle patch.
I still wonder that was one of those things that I can say that when we came in, and how what I had hoped to see during our service was when the flag it faces a different direction during peacetime.
Backwards in peace, but forward in war.
Forward in war, and sorry, right. But what bothered me was not getting to see it return to a peacetime flag before I retired. And I was in for 20 years, and I keep meaning to check to see if they have reversed it yet. If
I haven't looked, but to tie Native with civilian in the outside world and life itself, one thing you don't get to hear about my tribe in Niabey, we had during World War I, we still were. No, we were citizens. We've just been made citizens. Our tribal leader, or not leader, but religious leader, young doctor, I think it was young doctor, bestowed upon us a blessing that all young men who leave to fight in war will come back. No warriors will die in any wars to come. And to this date, since then, there's a memorial for all the veterans in Niabey. Nobody's died. Not one Makah warrior has died in World War I, II, Korea, Vietnam, none of them. And I attribute my stubbornness and trying to get back in to my tribal side. Also, I wasn't aware of it till somebody pointed out to me, and I think it was the chaplain of the time for Service Battery. And he said, "There's a higher purpose for you, Mr. Lister. Really, you have tried so hard and jumped through so many hoops to get back in. Somebody's watching over you and said, your time in the service is done. This is why you can't get back in. Stop. It's time for you to stop.
I believe that.
And
it's a
I never tried again. And I took that to heart. I said, I bet you're right. So it's part of part of the blessing. I accredited it to that. Is that I'm not meant for this life anymore. Now, do I carry it with me? Yes, proudly. I have a military, how do you say, candor? No. I carry myself with my military pride each day. The things I learned and the friends I've made, the people I've worked with. Military bearing. And I use it at work, I use it at home, even folding clothes, mopping the floor. The great things the military teaches you.
We have a lot of discussions about cleaning armories, so it's
So yeah, the things you take with you. But yes, it was a blessing, and I took it. I listened.
What would you say was your best day, best experience while you were serving? I mean, you got to be there for a lot of training missions. Were you there for any of the floods, for any of the fires?
No.
Were you in any of those?
No. Thankfully, nothing happened during my time in service. The greatest part was my 2000 year, and I didn't know I was being watched when I got to be section chief. Now, we had Sergeant Sharp and Sergeant Payne before that. Well, I learned from them. And I had supervisors in my civilian job that were awesome, great supervisors. And I listen, I pay attention. What works, what doesn't work. So I made sure you guys were always fed hot chow. We had coffee. We were resourceful in trading.
Yes.
I had a trader horn in our section, and he could trade for just about anything. I kept him with me. And
I will not to cut you off, but I will say one of the best tips that I got from this fellow was making friends with the cooks, because back in those days we would supply the fuel. We would have MoGas and JP8 and the different generators that they needed for running their MKTs, their cooking stations, were reliant on our fuel. And by making sure that we got there in a timely manner, making sure they were filled up, when something did run out, that we would get out there and get them fuel. They hooked us up with extra coffee, with extra bread, with extra fresh vegetables, which when you're in the desert for a couple of weeks eating MREs
and sand,
I'll tell you what, like a fresh apple or banana or just a peanut butter and jelly sandwich that didn't come in a vacuum sealed pack were just were a feast. They were a feast, and we were very blessed with that. So
yeah, well,
sorry for interrupting.
Oh, no.
I just had to. You were the one that I always carried that, made sure that I either volunteered myself or volunteered my soldiers to help with any of the details with the cooks, because they
love it.
Yeah, well, and more times than often they were the ones that were going to keep us supplied with good food,
with a full stomach.
Yes,
It was, and that was my motivation. Was I'm hungry, and by the time we usually get breakfast, it's cold because they ran out of fuel. And
well, in the mission, we were always. That was the thing that I remember is we would be set up fueling before the meal was even served,
mm-hmm.
and we wouldn't be done fueling until the evening meal had already been served. So
we got the bottom of the
marmite. Us getting a hot meal for breakfast or for dinner chow was always sketchy at best.
Yeah. So I talked to the head spoon and I said, what can we do to make your life easier? Well, I need fuel, and I said, okay, when do you need it? Well, we're always out in the morning. Nobody ever comes and fuels us up. Why? I don't even know. And so I said, all right, tell you what, we're going to come and fuel you up now, and then at night we'll hit you again. That way, first thing in the morning, all your tanks are full. Well, that'd be awesome. Okay, what else do you need? I think that's it. Not a problem. Hooking you up. And so I sent Evanger over there. Evanger, go fill up all their tanks. What for? We're getting breakfast first. Okay. He ran off and he grabbed a fuel truck and he went over and fueled them up. And I can't remember what we traded for, but we wound up with a full mermaid of coffee. And we put it on the side of the truck. Yes. We covered it up with fuel pads so nobody could see it. And we traded that. Sergeant Major came over once a day to fill his coffee cup. We kept Sergeant Major hooked up and he left us alone. It was awesome. But yeah.
I have a story about Sergeant Major Colhane. It was one of the first people that I ever fueled out in the field, and he pulls up in his Humvee. Humvees only hold about 22, maybe 23 gallons. Ish. And I actually put over 23 gallons into his Humvee. Mm-hmm. I mean, he
topped it up.
he would drive it dry. I was amazed that he had broke down somewhere or ran out of fuel somewhere, but yeah, he definitely was one of those
on the go.
So,
so yeah, it was one of those things like that. Like I said, it was keeping you guys full of chow. You got your downtime. I would go and do that for you guys while you had your downtime. And I would wake up at 4 to go to the Chiefs meeting and get all the information we needed and for the operation of the day and what's going to happen in the morning, during the day, and at night. Night operations, all of that. I was writing all this crap down. And do you have any questions? Do you have any input? Specialist Lister, you're new here. What do you got for us? What's our time getting out? Getting out? Yeah, to move to the next cantonment area or the next area of wherever we set up. What's our time on that? Well, usually it takes about an hour and 30 minutes. Right. How can I move this along? How can I make this better? What do you mean? Well, that's just ridiculous. I've been doing this for the last 2.5 years, and I'm fueling them as they're going. They're leaving. It doesn't make sense. I can do it in 30 minutes. You can get the whole cantonment area out of there in 30 minutes. Mm-hmm. Simple. I'm going to fuel you guys before we leave the night before. In the dark. Yes. At night. Yes. Well, they're still under tents. Yes. Then all I got to do is pack up and split. And then when they get there, I'll fuel them up again. And that way, we don't have to fuel them at night. Okay, let's try it. Tried it. 35 minutes. Loaded, packed, and out. That was a great part. Making sure everybody was... Because I knew the attacks were coming too, I just never knew when. And that was fun. Setting up, tearing down. We had people sneak blanks. That was fun. They snuck blanks to us. We weren't allowed to have blanks to shoot back at the Op 5 guys. We had blanks. We traded for blanks. So they weren't ready. And here they come. They're running up the hill. Fire! And you hear all their Miles gear going off. And, yeah, that was good times.
Miles gear is another episode that it will be that's
another story.
Another story. It's yeah.
So as I was saying, at the beginning, I was being watched. Like I said, I didn't know I was being watched. I'm just doing what I believe is the right thing. I've read my sergeant's books. I've had great sergeants that took care of me. I'm emulating them and my learning to take care of you guys. And it came up. We made it to the end. We're all in formation. The whole battalion is in formation. And this year for the Impact Award 2000, I'm like, what the fuck is an Impact Award? Pardon my French. What is an Impact Award? And somebody next to me, oh, it was Ebinger, said, oh, that's when they pick 4 guys from each battery that represent excellence and could be OCS or whatever, next sergeant's in line to be in charge. Oh, that's cool. So they named off Alpha, Bravo, Charlie Battery, Service Battery, Specialist Lister, Captain Chambers, get up there! He yells at me. I'm like, okay.
You're looking behind you like, who's this Lister?
Who's a Specialist Lister? So I'm like, okay. So I back up and run out and get in line with these other guys, and they're like, Service Battery? Nobody gets picked from Service Battery. And they explained this whole process of what they've been watching and who's been saying things. Like all the sergeants and the commanders, lieutenants, captains, even the Air Guard, when they were flying their helicopters over, they're watching and they're talking to people. And I didn't know that my section was the talk of the Air Guard. Weird, right? I'm like, why is the Air Guard talking about us? We don't even refuel them.
I always knew that we were, always knew we had the Air Guard, but I never had that opportunity to work with them in missions.
And so they're talking about this and explaining to us what's happening, because we didn't know. I didn't know they were watching me. I didn't know they were paying attention to what I was doing, what I was saying. And these 4 soldiers represent what it means to be a leader in the job they do, the people they take care of, the execution of the mission, the completion of missions, and just this, I call it a rambling of accomplishments in a 2-week period that they picked us for. I guess I did good. So I got my certificate, I got my plaque, I got to shake hands with the general, command sergeant major. The only person that wasn't there was the governor. He was busy. But yeah, that was my shining moment. The whole 2 weeks that I didn't know I was being watched, and taking care of you guys, getting the mission statements and waking up early, going to bed last, making sure you guys are warm and full of food, and we got lots of water, lots of coffee, snacks. We got lots of snacks. We even got a newspaper. That was fun. We had the medics rolling around in that track, and they would go by each battery and check us out. And I said, you guys need fuel? Yeah. Cool, we need a newspaper. Because they get back to the cantonment every night to reload up on medical supplies. I said, we just want a newspaper. You come by us in the morning, we'll fuel you up. Done. So we were the only ones to get a newspaper. And
that's that trading talent.
Barter.
Yes, barter.
Leaders like to barter. But yeah, that was my shining time in the Guard. I still have the plaque, and it's on my wall in my room. And if I'm down or I get to a point where I don't know where I'm going, it's not aligning for me. I'm in chaos. I'm breaking out. Sometimes I refer to that. I look at it and go, okay, deep breath time. Think, what can I do? I've got to figure this out. Okay, moving on, moving forward. Let's move forward. And I figure it out. It goes back to the military bearing. Calm down, figure out, adapt, overcome, make it happen in a efficient way. And I've done that with every job I've had since the Guard. I pull that with me.
What's something you wish I would have asked you that I didn't ask?
I don't know. I mean, it was hard work. I was tired, I was hurt. Did a lot of work. I had a lot of fun. Didn't get a lot of sleep. Went hungry a bit. I don't know. What do you got?
No, that's all good. Is there anything, what are you reading or what podcasts you listen to that you would want our folks to know about out there that I could reference?
A good reference for a believer. I have read, and I carry the beliefs with me, the book of James. It is a book. Now, it's kind of like, after reading it a few times, it reflects me. I work on the outside. Here's the box. I work outside of the box to keep the box in shape. And it's hard work, honesty, diligence, rectitude, and the courage to not be smart, to try and curb what I say. Sometimes I'm impulsive and my shut up mechanism doesn't work as fast as my mouth. And I will say things, but I'm always working to try and be better at that. Be better not only with me, but with a higher power. And trust that my path, though it be hard, I can travel it in my way and bring people with me. I don't want to bring people down. I want to make them a champion. And any trainees or employees I ever got, I would tell them that. I'm not here to boss you around. I'm here to make you a champion. And you're going to be the best at this. I promise. And okay, it's a weird way to go about it. No, I'm not lying. I'm going to teach you everything you need to know about this job. And then I won't have to do anything. What do you mean? Because if you're doing your job, I don't have to do mine. Wait a minute. You won't have to do your job. No, I won't have to do my job, which is to tell you how to do your job. So if you're doing your job, I don't have to do mine. Is it making sense? Yeah, I want to be a champion. I don't want you talking to me, Bam, not a problem. So working at 3 restaurants and this job, I have a reputation of being that boss that does their work so they can do other things. I trained everybody to be the best at what they can do. And if they needed help, I was there helping them. I will forego what I'm doing to help you finish your tasks. And even at my new job, I have the reputation to have the cleanest vehicles in the state. I changed everything. I redid it, made it a new way, because it was in chaos. And I bring order to chaos. It drives me up a wall to have everything just going and I don't want it that way. I want it to move forward, to be productive, not all over the place. And if you go to West Olympia Pizza Hut, name drop, and ask, hey, do you have a guy named James Lister work here? Oh yeah, he was the assistant manager for 2 years. My reputation is there. My reputation is also, well, there was a Tumwater one, but they're gone. Then Medicine Creek Cafe down in Nisqually, that's gone. That's another story. But yeah, I carry that with me. I want to build people up. I don't want to down on anybody. If I find myself downing on somebody, it's probably a good reason. You earned it. You've earned getting downed on or punched down on. But I'm going to try and go around that. And why am I doing this? Why do you think I'm doing this? Let's talk about it. Well, you're this. That may be, but you're this too. So let's meet in the middle. Now we can get over it, get past it, or we can be whatever this is forever, which is tiresome. Which do you want to be? Better or stick right where you are. Because if you want to stick right where you are, I'm moving up. And I can take you with me or I can leave you here. I'm not going to waste my time. And a lot of the times, okay, yeah, let's talk about it.
Right on.
I've had people that were basket case. I don't know if you remember it. Not Evinger. Oh my God, he was terrible. He had no money. He'd go to drill with no money. And
That you just
beg for smokes.
you just described
a
half
lot of the guard,
Half
yeah.
the guard.
We don't have any money. I don't have any money right now either, thanks to the guard. No, yeah, he'd show up with no money, no cigarettes. He hadn't washed his uniform since the last drill, and he was an addict. And he schlepped around, wouldn't follow direction. And then I got to be in charge of the section, and I was getting tired of his crap. There wasn't much I could do. I talked to the NCOs, and they're like, well, you can't kick his ass, and you can't kick him out. You're just going to have to deal with him. Okay, so there, I had to 180 my thinking. Okay, I can't just continually down on this guy. We're going to stay in the same spot. He's going to stay where he is, and I'm just going to sit here hating on him. Not conducive to a positive thought. I got to change this guy. I have to make him understand what he's doing is not okay. I'm going to make him better. I'm going to make him a champion. So I come here. And, oh, what do you want? Bam! Right up in his face. I'm going to be your best friend. We're going to pal around all day, every day. And we're going to straighten you out. I'm going to help you. We are going to be better people from now on. I am not going to yell at you. Yelling doesn't accomplish anything. And I laid it out. I said, you're not going to do this anymore. You're going to do this. And I'm going to come by your house 2-3 times a week to check on you. If you're dirty, you're going to get clean. If you're drunk, I'm going to pour out all your alcohol. You're in my section, and you're not going anywhere. And neither am I. And it took 2 years. But he was clean. Yeah, he drank beer, but he didn't drink hard alcohol. He was taking pills. He all but stopped taking pills. And we became best friends. And I took care of him. And yeah, he wound up getting an honorable discharge, even after being arrested a couple of times for drug charges.
Wow.
And we remained pals even after service. And I think he's living somewhere in Eastern Washington. But it's that whole Book of James. Don't talk ill. Brave.
Putting your faith into action.
Right.
Doing the work.
Exactly. That's what it was. Do the work and be true to yourself, first of all. And the honesty, rectitude, all that comes with it. And that's what I did, and I was better for it. I stopped hating him because I hated him. And
we're gonna end on a positive note here. I'm gonna bring the tour to an end. You did good. You brought and I think that's one of the things that those that are still leaders that are in, but those that are thinking about going in, you're going to get handed some difficult cases, and your actions, your interactions are going to be what's going to help make or break that soldier.
As a leader, as a future leader, I was never thinking I was going to be a leader. I thought I was just going to be a soldier, march around, follow direction, do a job, and it would suck. It will be what you want it to be. I went into basic training with an open mind, an empty slate. I forgot everything that I ever learned and took in everything that they taught me. I learned from people who had been in the job way longer than me. And I took all that information and I ran with it. I had the opportunity to move up, I did it. I had the opportunity to be in charge of awesome soldiers like this guy and ran with it. I got awarded for it. I've got certificates from 2 different governors for jobs I did because I took the initiative to do so. So again, if you think it's gonna suck, it's gonna suck. But if you go in with a positive mind and an open mind and learn all that's learnable, it's possible to have a great time and make lifelong friends along the way. Be strong to yourself, your beliefs, whatever religion you want to believe in, and share it, care for it, take care of yourself and your fellow soldiers, and you can't fail at all. I didn't.
I had a lot of failure stories, but that's for another episode. James, thank you very much.
Thank
I
you for your
appreciate it.
service,
I'll
brother.
try not to make it 10 years. I'll try. I try not to make it so long next time. And to everybody out there, thank you for your service and thank you for watching.
Blue Falcon.
Blue Falcon out.